So I think schools have to realize that the basic thumb rule would be you get your stakeholders to decide what's the vision of your school. Maybe in the beginning, when you started, there'll be no stakeholders around. The management was decided to launch a school, let us say. But at that time, it's very important for them to bring in some teachers, some alumnus or their own friends, and they need to brainstorm. This is what we did in my own school. When we started in 1989, it was our own vision that we designed. But later on, after 10 years, we redesigned the vision. We're planning to actually change the vision statement. We're replacing child-centric into learner-centric. Change only one word, but it matters a lot in my vision statement. Just wanted to share how this vision statement is very dynamic and it is all the time connected with changes that are happening in society around us.
Ma'am, another thought comes to my mind that with reference with governance and management, that when a society comes into inception and they have a thought that they want to start up an educational setup, because it is educational, because it deals with children and we are molding a human race. So the core values and the beliefs need to be very, very strong and very, very clear, right? And what I feel is they will have multiple steps, like you just said, that management and governance will not be only in the form of silos or circumscribed to some specific thing. It will be all encompassing. We will begin with the basic core value of vision and mission, because that core value gets reflected in our children when they move out of the school after, say, let's say 10, 12 years. So we begin with the vision mission. Infrastructure comes to be a part of it. Our fee systems and admissions come to be a part of it, because when we finalize the fees, again, the governance and management comes into being when we see whatever we are finalizing as the fee structure, is it contextual?
True.
Will it be valid and will it be genuine for the people to pay for it? That does it relate to the services that we provide? Then what are the resources available to us? Resources at all levels, at the infrastructure level, at the teachers level, at the stakeholders level, at the students level. We need to make an optimum utilization of all resources.
True.
Then we need to see that we don't only see governance and management in this, it also comes in how we coordinate with the stakeholders.
True.
What is our relationship management with all stakeholders? Are we able to develop and sustain those relations? That is very, very important. Just developing or giving the relationship a start in itself is not enough.
No.
It is the sustenance and the positive note and the healthy interaction. It has to be a two-way track. Relationships have to be maintained in a two-way track system. Cannot be a monologue. Another important thing which I felt was that how we maintain our data and record and how we communicate. Because formation of policies are again one more thing which will reflect our management and governance. Is the management and governance pro teachers? Is it looking at the growth of the children? Are they open-handed? Means they are very liberal with funds to provide resources, to provide infrastructure, to upkeep, invest in teacher training, all those things.
I was just opening out my SQAA manual just to take this further, because I think whatever you're saying, I think people, when they read this part we're dealing with in, the effective coordination, look at the subheadings, institutional planning, they're not as simple as we think actually, Vinodita. Other than the vision and the mission, we're also looking at very important things like when they talk about records, are you, first of all, identifying the resources needed? And most importantly, is this backed up by a budget allocation? And do you have a monitoring, mentoring, reviewing process to make sure that these resources are utilized well? What are you doing with what resources you have in the school? Very, very important. And as you rightly pointed out, the record keeping, an annual budget, your stock registers, because if the management is looking at lot of resource management and support, what innovative practices is that school following? to conserve these very precious resources. Every resource that we have is precious. Could be the water, it could be the power supply, it could be books that we have in the library, maybe technology, the other equipment that we have. What are we doing? Is the school working on their stationery usage, their diesel bills, their printing? What are they doing in all these areas? How is energy conservation happening? How is the budget being audited constantly so that we know we are on track? And you know what, Vinodita, one of the banes I've seen is the photocopier. Because these are all resources and paper is getting so scarce, Vinodita, with all our trees getting cut down, alternate forms of paper. Somewhere where technology has come to stay, should we look at how the technology could support resource utility in a school?
School education is basically a journey.
Mm.
It is a constant growth process.
True.
And that is why we need to constantly recalibrate, rethink, reflect. Those things are very, very important in the management and governance of the school. Like I would like to mention here that whenever we have our admission policies, now inclusivity in schools has come up in a big way in the last couple of years.
Yes.
Initially, inclusivity was not in the way as we perceive it today. So, keeping in view the new education policy 2020, the RTE, the inclusivity in schools, a number of processes, a number of thought patterns in school need to be revamped and need to be done afresh.
Absolutely.
But here I would like to add one more thing. We need to keep the context into the main focus.
True.
What works for me, what ideology works for me, what are my needs may not work for you.
Absolutely.
So it is not just copy, paste and go. It has to be thought through. And that is why this domain 5 on management and governance is absolutely important. And CBSE has been very thoughtful in putting it at a place just after inclusivity.
Absolutely.
At number 5.
Yes.
Because without this, a school just cannot run.
One aspect of the manual, because it's 5.5, which talks about relationship management.
Yes.
And I think schools have to not just nurture, but they say you sustain meaningful relationships. And it also goes on to talk about a relationship management where there is a guideline for stakeholders. How do teachers communicate with parents? How to maintain that relationship? How to speak respectfully? How to respond on time? Do you use different channels to communicate? If you just go through 5.5 and see, beautifully, I think the SQAA manual has designed, and the open door policy talks about that. Do you have an open door policy which helps parents to maintain that relationship where anyone could tell whatever they wish to about the school? Because ultimately we're looking at nurturing and sustaining. Two things: we develop, we nurture, and above everything else, we need to sustain. I don't think any two schools are identical. Even if you look at the DPS group, or there are other such groups which have branches across the country, two of their schools will not be identical. So I think this is one guideline all our viewers must be aware of, that we are not, we could go and visit a school, a well-known one, or you are known for SQAA, I am on the panel. They could come, ma'am, can you allow us to come to your school and see what you're doing? Perfect. The open door policy applies to us. We may come. So schools should realize that they can learn from others, but cannot ditto copy what someone else does. I think this is a little caution, I would say, I'd like to talk about for members to realize that they must be a little careful. And another thing which probably not implicitly mentioned or even explicitly is that about transparency in all their operations, the academic and the financial transparency. And I think in leadership also we did speak about this. And I think the management and the principal, the entire credibility hinges on one word called transparency.
Absolutely. Ma'am, when we talk about governance and management, and we talk about transparency, we talk about stakeholders, we talk about policies and systems in school. Another thing that is important that comes to my mind is for my peer group and for schools that are newly coming up, is that we need to have all stakeholders on board And
Yes.
for that, we need to also be open about it and frame mindsets. Because maybe 5-7 years back, the involvement of parents was not in a way as we have it now. Now, since the schools have become more open, they are one of the major stakeholders after the students and teachers.
True.
So now the schools are roping in the parents to contribute in multiple ways, and they enrich the entire environment. So the management and governance, we begin from domain 1, which is curriculum and pedagogy, of course, the basic domain for any school system. Then we have infrastructure, right? Then I think when all these things, inclusivity and all, after that, management and governance is a very, very important domain. And I think, ma'am, you have put it very explicitly. I'm sure the viewers who will be watching this video, they will have a clear picture of regarding the importance of management and governance, and how on different parameters, what should be its roles and responsibilities. It is not just about the society or the trust or the heads of the schools or the supervisors. It is everybody, starting from the Mali or the peon to the trust head.
Yes.
So everyone is involved. And ma'am, thank you so much for putting it so beautifully.
Thank you.
I'm sure it's going to be great hand-holding and great learning for all those who are viewing the video.
Thank you, Vinidita, and it's always my pleasure because you're contributing immensely to the movement of SQAA across schools. This is not an official CBS website, but you are doing it out of that need that you need to support schools across. And I think this is doing just what you wanted. Your vision of starting the series was to support schools. This is exactly what is happening.